You don't have to be a professional cake decorator to make cakes that look professional. Let's start with some basics to give your cake a stable structure and neat outline, and then I'll share some decorating tips and some hacks for transporting and serving professional-looking cakes. Firstly, to prevent bulges in the sides of your cake, as you're assembling your cake, pipe a ring of frosting around the edge of each layer and spoon your filling into the middle. This is called a buttercream dam, and it works well for lemon curd, caramel, jams, anything that's runnier than frosting, because the dam will hold the filling in so it doesn't ooze out the sides. If you skip the dam, as you start adding more cake layers and then frost the cake, the weight of those layers and the frosting will push down on the filling, and as it squeezes out, it causes bulges under the frosting on the sides of the cake. Don't worry about the dams sticking out, those will become part of the crumb coat, which is the next hack for making cakes look professional. For super smooth frosting with no crumbs in it, take a few minutes to create a crumb coat. Spread frosting to cover the top and the sides of the cake and smooth it a little bit to make fairly straight sides and a level top. The purpose of this first layer, the crumb coat, is to trap any crumbs that come off the cake. Then let the crumb coat set, which takes about 30 minutes in the fridge if you're using my 4-minute buttercream. You want the crumb coat to completely cover the entire cake so that there's no naked cake exposed. And that way, when you spread on your final layer, none of the crumbs that came off the cake will be able to get into it, so there won't be any visible crumbs in the frosted cake. For a super sharp top edge around the cake, pour boiling water into a glass or cup and dip a sharp knife into it. Dry it off and then take your chilled cake out of the fridge or freezer and cut around the top edge. The cake only needs about 30 minutes in the freezer for the frosting to get this firm, or about an hour in the fridge. The hot knife will slice easily through the frosting, and after taking off most of the excess, rest the knife on the top of the cake and spin the cake to trim off any more lumps and bumps. Use your cake comb to scrape around the sides of the cake to take off any bits of frosting sticking out around the top, and then skim over the top again to leave a perfectly flat top with a sharp angle down to the sides of the cake. Look how effective these rainbow layers look on a cake with sharp edges. However you decide to decorate the top or sides of your cake, a neatly piped border is a professional-looking way to finish it off, covering the bottom edge of the cake where it meets the cake board, and adding some detail and texture too. Choose an appropriately sized piping tip. For example, this number 32 tip is perfect for this tiny 4-inch cake. Get your colours right. For bright red frosting rather than pinkish red, and for true black instead of grey, or for a deep navy or bold purple, I recommend using gel colours because they're much more concentrated than liquid colours, so you'll need to use a lot less to achieve the colours you want. Check out my tutorial on tricky frosting colours, or take my online course, The Basics of Buttercream, for all of my tips. Very simple patterns can look stunning on cakes if the patterns are symmetrical, and the easiest way to ensure this is to use a stencil. Wrap a piece of parchment paper around your cake after chilling it to set the frosting, and then fold it in half and half again, horizontally and vertically, to make equally spaced creases, and then wrap this homemade stencil around the chilled cake again. Poke a pin or toothpick through the points where the creases meet, and you've got a perfectly symmetrical pattern that you can pipe onto. Cake toppers add height and detail to a cake, and you can make your own personalised and affordable cake toppers with just chocolate and sprinkles. Melt some white or semi-sweet chocolate chips and then spoon them into a sandwich bag and cut off a little piece from one corner. Draw your shape or number or design and tape a piece of parchment paper on top and trace over it with the melted chocolate. Don't worry about making it perfectly neat and smooth, just stay within the outline and then pour sprinkles on top, and they'll stick to the melted chocolate. Chill it in the fridge or freezer for a few minutes and then peel it off the parchment. To turn this into a topper, squeeze some more melted chocolate onto the back and press a paper straw into it. When the chocolate sets, it will be firm, so you can push the straw into a cake to make a fun, colourful cake topper. For professional presentation, instead of transporting your cakes in cake caddies like this, deliver them in pretty boxes. Choose a box with the same width as your cake board so that the cake doesn't slide around within the box, and make sure the sides are taller than your cake so that you can fit the lid on. Wrapping a piece of colourful ribbon around the box adds a nice finishing touch. If you buy boxes in bulk, they're very affordable and really make your cakes look more professional. Let's compare two apparently identical cakes to demonstrate this next hack. As I'm assembling these two cookie dough cakes, you can see that the layers look very different. On the left, I've leveled the layers so that they're flat, but I've left the caramelized edges on each cake layer. On the cake on the right, I've trimmed the top and bottom and the edges of each layer. Before frosting the cake layers I didn't trim look neater, but by trimming the edges of the cake layers on the right, this makes for a more tender cake to bite into, and the slices look much prettier without the darker edges around each layer. The cake board is a very important part of your cake. Choose a cake board at least 2 inches bigger than the cake to leave space for frosting and decorations. These boards look big enough at the beginning, but after frosting the cakes, the bottom tips of the hearts are almost poking over the edge of the boards. For small cakes 4 or 6 inches, or for larger cakes that have 1 or maybe 2 layers, cardboard cake boards are strong enough, but for larger and taller cakes, use a sturdier material like foam core or acrylic to support the weight. Thinner boards will buckle under the weight of the cake and cause your frosting to crack. So, those are my 10 hacks to make your cakes look more professional. Check out my online courses on BritishGirlBakes.com for hundreds of cake designs and decorating techniques to take your cakes to the next level.